Hey guys, welcome back to Latinos in Real Estate Investing podcast, which will soon be Wealthy AF, where individuals just like you come to learn how to create wealth through real estate investing, entrepreneurship, and business ownership. And today I have two guests, and that's Frank Mendoza and Mike Kaeding. They both are returning guests to the podcast. I was so intrigued with both of their conversations. These are two really intelligent guys with technology and all of that good stuff that I'm not really strong with. So I just want to continue to learn from these guys. I figured I'd do a round table with them and I could just ask them questions on their predictions of what's going to happen with technology. How are they using technology in 2024 and beyond in real estate and in their businesses, and just in general, what are some of the cool, neat things out there today that we can all use to get more productive? So today I have Frank Mendoza, that's the founder and managing partner of Catalytics, and is a highly respected, award-winning analytics leader with over 20 years of experience in strategy and data science. Mike Kaeding is a residential real estate builder and developer. He and his team are transforming the way apartments are built and managed by incorporating technologies and efficiencies that have revolutionized other industries and lead to higher quality, cost-effective projects. I will share this with you. Last time I had Mike here, we had a discussion, man, and Mike was sharing some really neat things about some of the technology that's out and robots and painting. And you left such an impression on me, Mike. I still talk about that stuff with other investors. I'm like, hey,
I love that.
You know, I learned this from this really smart guy. He's what he's doing, and and it's like, man, you got so many neat things. And from you, Frank, I learned so many things that I'm still referencing. I was like, I have to have these two guys together and in a podcast, and we can unpack some of the things. So, Frank, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
Why don't you first tell us a little bit more about yourself, because I know I just kind of went really high level. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing today.
Yeah, Martin, I think, first of all, thank you so much for having me back. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here. I really enjoyed our last conversation and glad to hear that you got a lot of value out of it. Catalytics, my company, has been helping consumer brands to execute actionable AI strategies to grow their top line and improve their bottom line by tens of millions of dollars. So that means that I work with organizations to really lay a foundation in terms of being able to take advantage of some of these emerging technologies like AI, like data science. Those types of technologies are going to really make data-driven decisions a lot easier to make. And so excited to be here and certainly looking forward to the conversation with Mike as well.
Awesome. Mike, welcome, my friend. Welcome back.
Yeah.
And why don't you let the listeners that haven't heard you or didn't hear our first episode, let them just tell us a little bit more about yourself as well.
Yeah, at a high level, we simply design, build, and rent apartments, but we're focused on driving down the cost of construction. We've been achieving about a 20 to 30% reduction in those construction costs. We believe that someday we could achieve a 50% reduction. But imagine what that means. It means someday your rent or mortgage payment could be half. That's our dream, is to really solve housing affordability. We're doing that through a variety of methods, including technology.
So tell us, how are you using technology? Why don't I ask this question first to the both of you? What is the most cutting edge piece of technology that either one of you is using right now in your businesses? So Mike, you're in real estate. Frank, you're in the analytics and technology space. So just respectively on both of your industries, what is the latest, most cutting edge, neatest, coolest tool you're currently using right now that's free or affordable to the public? I'll go with you first, Mike.
Yeah. So for us, one of the areas that we're working heavily in is raising capital. And part of that journey of raising capital means that we've got to build up this system to attract people to invest in what we're doing. So kind of on the mundane side is just building up the whole CRM, omnichannel communication flow with potential investors. I think the more interesting thing, the more cutting edge stuff in that space is the use of generative AI to generate messages that are a response to people. And it's really neat technology. I would say it's not quite there yet. We're playing with it, where the system now is generating all the responses and our teams are reviewing those responses, editing them, and then sending them out. But honestly, given how fast it's changing, we could see that be fully taking over our responses in the next coming years.
Is that self-learning, Mike? Is that a self-learning tool?
It is so cool. So as you work with it, it recognizes how it failed and reads your messages, and it actually gets meaningfully better at every single step. If you've ever worked with chat software in the past before, it's sort of this like programmatic approach, like this hierarchy of responses and how you respond to them. That this is way more like teaching a coworker how to respond on your behalf. It's really amazing.
Wow. What about you, Frank? Are you using tools like this? And
Yeah. And the reality is, I couldn't have said it better, Mike. It's amazing the speed at which these technologies are going. They've been around for years, right? It's not something new, but I think the accessibility and the barrier to entry is significantly dropped, and so it makes things accessible to folks who otherwise would never have given the opportunity. And what we call that, Mike, that ability to learn based on positive results or negative results is called reinforcement learning, right? And so by applying that, you get a lot further along. I think the exciting stuff that's happening, as a matter of fact, is something called multimodal, right? So right now, over the last year, since the introduction of ChatGPT, people have played primarily in the text space. And what I mean by that is natural language processing. So being able to generate messages or text or, ask me to write a blog type thing, which is very impressive. And it's been amazing to be able to see that. But what we're moving into is what's called multimodal, which is going to have the ability to not just generate text, but generate video or generate images or generate audio, right? And being able to feed any one of those. So for example, feed in the image and then asking it to write an essay about that image, or feed it a video and saying, give me an audio to go along with that video. So being able to input any of those things and get output on any of those things is what's called multimodal. And just this week, as a matter of fact, Google has released something called Gemini. Gemini Pro, they have 3 versions, but Gemini Pro is being introduced into their Bard solution. And some of that functionality is going to start to gravitate towards accessibility towards the consumer, which is going to be amazing. So if you haven't seen the demos that Google has released this week, I encourage you to go check that out. Gemini, it's amazing, the responsiveness. It's amazing the ability to input different types of inputs and get different types of outputs out. It's really going to be revolutionary, I think, going into 2024.
You want to say?
Yeah, another thing I've noticed is that the ease of implementing these tools is getting so much better. I remember, even a few years ago, implementing a whole CRM infrastructure that goes through multiple channels and all of that, it's a nightmare. Even if you're using something like Salesforce, it takes months to kind of get all that up there and everyone trained in. Now we actually implemented a whole new software, a whole new CRM, and got all automations, omni-channel working, AI implemented, everything you could imagine, every feature under the sun. We got that running and operational in our business in like 7 days. It was incredible.
Incredible.
Did you have to hire a consultant to come in and do that for you, Mike? Or you're really into tech and you're a really brilliant guy. Did you guys do it internally, or did you hire someone from the outside to come build that out for you?
We did it internally, but the thing is, the tools have gotten so easy that anyone can implement this really quickly. I'll give you one example. In the world of handling telephones and text messages, in other softwares, you have to set up the telemetry properly to make all that stuff happen. In sort of these more modern, agile kind of software, they've done all that for you. So you just turn on the software, say you want a phone number, and it's golden. It's right out of the gate running for you. It's much easier.
Give us some of those software names. Let's give some tools to our listeners. What are some of those? What are some of that technology you both are using? You can share with our listeners, business owners, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs. That like, hey man, this is great stuff. What CRM are you using, Mike? And what CRM are you using, Frank? I'd like to. And what other things? What plugins are you putting in to automate things to make your businesses easier? I'll go with you first, Mike.
Yeah. So I love the Microsoft suite. We use a lot of that infrastructure, but I would say that that does require some setup. There's more complexity there, more power. But I'll give you one other tool. If you want to move quickly and get almost every feature you can imagine, we're using a system called High Level, and that's just a CRM that has everything built into one package. And that's what we got up and running in a matter of days.
And when you say everything built into one package, what are some of those features that you would say it has?
Omni-channel communication. So Facebook, WeChat, text message, email, phone calls, all built into one package. It does all the telemetry for you. It does automations and no code programming. So you can decide when you get a new lead that comes in, you can build out that whole hierarchy of how that lead gets processed. You can add in custom fields into each one of these records, which is really nice because no business is all the same. And like for us, we needed certain fields to add in there to classify certain records. But all of that is done within the system in a very neat package, super, super easy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's from my perspective, right? So my CRM is more of a homegrown CRM, but what I'm doing is layer other tools and technologies above that, right? So things like where I could feed it notes that I've done, and it give me a summary, and then it let something like ChatGPT, for example, give me a summary of that, so that's consistent, and then I can populate. It's these technologies. I'm working with a partner right now who works in a customer service space, right, Martin? And they're using these technologies to do post call summaries. So it's able to not only capture the audio transcript, but then turn that into a text transcript, summarize that information, and populate their CRMs, real time almost, to the point where you're starting to gather consistent information, which is going to be key for further analysis and data science solutions in the future. So, these technologies are going to be able to do things like give you real-time sentiment. So as a person's talking to you on a call, they're able to say how positive or negative that sentiment is in real time, to be able to kind of even feed you or guide you, provide some scripting to help you turn, if it's negative, to a more positive experience for the agents themselves.
Holy smokes. This is amazing. So for the more non-sophisticated technology people like myself, not like you guys, I want to know, how are you guys? Most of us are using ChatGPT one way or another, and most of us, and including myself, are probably not maximizing it to its fullest potential. Right? We're probably using it. Like yesterday, I went on there. I had a doctor's appointment, and one of my numbers were off, and I was like, "Hey, act like the world's best dietitian or something." And it was really simple, right? I'm just using it really simple, but I like to know how you really smart, intelligent guys, technology guys, are using it. And what advice would you give us entrepreneurs, or just regular people, more so entrepreneurs, how to use it better and more efficiently? I'm going to go with you first, Mike.
Yeah. So I use it all the time. I'll give you one specific example. Again, right now we're focused on raising capital. So we've got to create the ads that can attract that capital. Well, it turns out in the world of advertising, you see a vast or a huge difference in the success of an ad, even if you change just a handful of words or even down to one word. And so what we've done is we're using ChatGPT to generate a ton of different ads and different kinds of copy. We then do it a once over, we review it ourselves, but then we take that copy and put it into, say, Facebook ads or some ad platform. Mm-hmm. And then we use that ad platform to test all those different ads. Before, coming up with all those ideas was just painful. We would never get to the volume. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing much greater success by using that volume that we can get from ChatGPT.
Outstanding. What about you, Frank? How are you using the tool?
Yeah, so I've actually made the investment and gotten the pro version of ChatGPT. I think it's roughly about $20 a month. So there is something that I think is it's referred to as custom GPT. And so what that is the ability to create a bot specific to a use case or a specialty, right? So custom GPT is going to allow you to create, I'm just making this up, right? So if you want to create a specific agent, if you will, around, ad creation, right? What you could then do is give it, just explain to it what you're trying to do. So I would like to create ads for my company. Here's information on my company. Here's what I tend to do. And then you could actually feed it information. So this could be PDFs, this could be Word documents, this could be previous advertising campaigns, things like that. And then what that does is it creates, again, a custom GPT. So specific to that use case. And then now you can use that to really hone in on creating ad campaigns or and things like that. So moving away from more of a general GPT like ChatGPT is, that's trained on everything, and really what they call fine tuning a little bit in terms of, I want you to perform this function. Here I'm giving you good examples of what success looks like. I'm giving you context, about my company, PDFs, maybe websites to reference, things like that, so that it's really tailored towards that function. And then you'll be surprised how much more successful the outputs are in terms of those custom GPTs, as opposed to the more general version that you use with ChatGPT.
One thing that you can do with that very insight is something like Go High Level, or that high level serum I was talking about earlier, with their no code programming, no coding environment. You can connect right into ChatGPT. And so if you give ChatGPT the right prompts and make it do what you want it to do, you can then pass in information through your CRM, pass it to ChatGPT. It then spits back the response that you want, and all of that gets handled automatically. You should need less staff to handle these sorts of more complicated tasks.
Wow. So we can cut down on staff costs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And again, it gets back to consistency in messaging, right? Because we all recognize that a consistent message is a message people can resonate with. And so by training these solutions to be able to garner and gather as much information about our organization or about the topic at hand, you're able to take advantage of those with, like you said, very modular, very no code solutions that are going to be able to, a layman can be able to pull together fairly quickly.
Are there any courses that maybe a listener is listening? Because, I'm listening to you guys, right? I'm an operator. I'm a real estate investor operator. And I don't have the time. And Mike, you guys know, you go both for owners, right? It's like, hey, I want to learn this stuff. But is there a course? I want to learn it, but I want to learn it at this level because I just don't have the time to go and put all the things. I don't know if any of you read the book. I'm reading it now. The who, not how, is finding the right people to implement those things for you, not the how. But maybe I'm just thinking out loud here. If a listener is out there and thinking what I'm thinking, and what I'm thinking right now is like, hey, this is a great skill to have. It's going to be an extremely valuable skill in the future to have for businesses, to have people on their team that have this skill, a good prompter that really understands ChatGPT. Are there any courses out there that you guys might know of, or books or training? I mean, something that you can pick up in a couple of hours and get the skill that maybe an entrepreneur like myself can say, hey, I'm going to hire this person, or I'm going to take my one VA and put him through this training so that they can then give me these outcomes. Are you guys aware of any courses or anything like that?
Yeah, I've definitely, I've seen a number of courses. I don't remember their names off the top of my head. But honestly, this field is so new that I think one of the best sources to learn more about sort of what people are doing is YouTube. It's shocking how many videos are out there, like people doing different prompts and different things with ChatGPT, and you get to see the limit of what the system is capable.
Got it. Frank, any thoughts on that?
Blatant plug, right? So I've been invited by the American Marketing Association to conduct a training on generative AI strategies and best practices. That's coming out in early January. So if you're interested, of course, Martin, I can give you the links and everything for people to register for that training. That's a shameless plug. But what I will say is two things. One is I completely agree with Mike. There are amazing YouTube videos out there where people have really done deeper into like this custom GPT, for example, or other use cases where they have. But what I'll do is I'll also caveat that with saying, be strategic and intentional, because there's so much overload as well, right? So what I would argue is, if you're interested, for example, in leveraging these technologies for creating ad campaigns and things like that, then go with that intention into YouTube, right? Say, how do I use large language models? How do I take advantage of ChatGPT to create ad campaigns, right? Be very specific in terms of what you're looking for, because like I said, you could quickly become overwhelmed in terms of the amount of content that's out there. And at the end of the day, spend more time learning as opposed to doing, right? And so take that into consideration. And the third thing I'll say, Marty, is learn the fundamentals of prompt engineering. Don't learn scripting, learn what are the elements and things that you want to introduce into your prompt engineering. Because whether you use, I mentioned Gemini from Google, or ChatGPT from OpenAI, or Bing Chat from Microsoft, the fundamentals remain the same, right? You want to include context, you want to include instruction, you want to include examples, you want to include output, so that, and as long as that framework or that again, framework is there, the technology is going to give you output. Now, some may be better than others, some may give you better output than what you're looking for, but the fundamentals are there sound.
Mike, do you think that AI, and this is for both of you, will take over humanity? Will replace all jobs? Will you guys seen that Netflix show? I don't know if you guys, I think I talked to one of you about it. I forget the show, where there's it would predict, there's like a big AI, and it would, the all-seeing eye, and it would see, I forget the name of that show, and you would pick up the guy would be walking in, the phone would payphone with AI, pick up a payphone and would tell him what crimes are going to happen. It was weird, because it's like, hey, this is kind of like what we're seeing right now with AI. I want to get your thoughts on it. Will AI be the destruction of humanity? Elon Musk and some really intelligent people believe that AI is very dangerous, and if we don't slow it down and we don't, really put a watchdog on this thing, it can really destroy humanity. I want to get your thoughts. Will it destroy Will it destroy all jobs? Will it be the end of humanity with it? And will human beings be lames in the future, where we have computers doing everything for us? I'm going to go with you first, Mike.
Boy, that's an interesting question. What I'll say first is that throughout history, we have had this same sort of argument, right? The Industrial Revolution. Will we destroy all jobs, or farm jobs largely went away? Or we used to spend a huge amount of our GDP on creating clothing, but all that's been automated away. I would say humans are really good at adapting and changing to the landscape in front of them. So I actually look at AI in more of a positive perspective. I think it's going to make our lives much better in the long term. Certainly there are those risks, and we need to be mindful of that. But I think sometimes the risk can be overblown, in my opinion, personally.
What about you?
Yeah, I have a very similar opinion. I tend to be very optimistic around these things. Now, I also not naive to the detrimental effects that it could have, right? I think the reality is, and this is one of the things we talked about during our last conversation, right, Martine? Go experiment, because I think it will be disruptive to those people who are hesitant to take advantage of the technology. There's concepts like artificial general intelligence. This is where, it starts to surpass human intelligence. There are smarter people than me, theorists and futurists and things like that, who have a better line of sight to those types of things. Will it be disruptive? Absolutely. Will it impact jobs? Absolutely. But I think it's incumbent upon us to recognize what differentiates us from the technology, and that's compassion, it's empathy, it's emotion, and our ability to use those elements to make human judgment, I think is what's going to differentiate us. I'll give you a prime example, right? I think the ability for these AIs to reduce the mundane, the tedious, the things that we're challenged with on a day-to-day basis is immense. I think the opportunity to do that. If you take a call center employee, for example, I mentioned summarization of notes, being able to populate CRMs, being able to share or self-service, allow people to self-service. All those things are opportunities for AI to take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? The easier stuff that AI takes off of people's plate means the more complex and the more challenging issues are going to come to the humans still, right? And I think that's where we have to lean into that, lean into the empathy, lean into the storytelling, lean into the human judgment to make sure that we all recognize the role we can play in creating this better society alongside AI.
So this question is again for both of you. I'm a plumber and I'm listening to this podcast. I'm saying this is great stuff. They're out there plumbing, they're out there putting pipes in houses and buildings. And like, okay, how can if both of you were their consultant, and this is just a small business guy with 1 or 2 employees, and he's listening to us, okay, how can I use all of this technology to leverage and get more production? What would be the first thing you would tell that small business owner listening to us to do that doesn't have the time, that's busy doing and operating, that doesn't have the time to do and learn and take all these things? What are the 1, 2, 3 things you would tell them to do to start implementing this technology? Frank, I'm going to go with you first. What are you telling them to do to leverage all of this wonderful technology we have?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would recommend is keep track of your day time-wise, right? In terms of where you spend in your time and energy. And then once you have a week or 2 of that collected, right? And this could be a tick sheet, right? I'm not saying go get technology and map it down to the minute, but really recognize where you're spending your day, where you're spending your time. And then you start to recognize it's similar to, Martin, what we talked about before, which is if you were to hire a virtual assistant, you would probably do something like this, which is now go look at areas where you're like, this is the value that I bring to my organization. This is unique to me. This is my skill set. This is where I need to spend the time and energy. And these are the other activities that I could offload, right? Either to a VA, and in this case, maybe an AI. Then if you do that, then that gives you that intentionality and that strategic that I was talking about, which is now you say, well, I'm spending a lot of my time emailing or scheduling these appointments, right? Not the best use of my time. My best use of my time is actually fixing and resolving the plumbing issue. Mm-hmm. So if scheduling is an issue, now you can start to be real intentional and saying, now I'm going to go to YouTube or other vendors and say, who has an AI solution, or how could I leverage these to help in my scheduling? Right? Maybe use no code and tap that into a Zapier, for example, and say, could I use ChatGPT to create a message that can then be texted out to my people to schedule, or to my clients to schedule? That's where I think I would recommend people is find the areas in your day that you're leveraging your unique value proposition or your strategy or skill, and then see if there's opportunities for AI to help supplement or take that off of your plate.
Mike?
Man, I love that. I think that is the right takeaway. I'll give a little bit different perspective. Even just a couple of years ago, you would often hear people talk about the coming wave of AI, and they would say things like, your manufacturer worker, those jobs are going to go first because they're the most basic, routine kind of jobs. But the creative people, well, they have a long way out before AI actually takes that over. And what's really insightful is that it's almost been the opposite. The kinds of creative activities are the ones that AI is figuring out first, where the mundane and manufacturing construction type of work is actually last, it seems. So for a plumber in particular, I'd actually say your job is probably less at risk right now than a more creative video producer. And so you may not have to think about this as they do. But we are looking at it, right? So you want to be on top of what kind of technologies are out there. There are robots right now that can paint rooms. There are robots that can do excavating, like digging up soils and things of that nature. And so trying to see what technology is out there and trying to see, can I apply these technologies to what I do, is a great first step.
What's the cost of those? I know you're using, I think you mentioned you were using them, Mike, in your developments. Did you say you were using them, or did you? Or
we are not using them today. We are actively pursuing them.
Yeah. What's the cost of those robots? I'm just curious. Do you know?
Yeah. So like the painting robots, it's not an upfront cost, at least the first vendors we've talked to. They're trying to charge it as if it's an employee. So you actually pay them sort of the employee cost, which is a smart move on their part.
It is a smart move, but for us, it's not. As
exactly.
We want to buy it own.
That will last. Subscription, right? Everything is a subscription nowadays.
Yeah. So anyway, it's only like $10,000 a month.
Okay, so it's $120,000 robot. But I mean, if you have, I'm already thinking of as an entrepreneur, I'm already thinking of a business I could create, right? You could go buy the robot, buy 5, 6 of these things, open up a painting company, hire a guy to drop them off, use ChatGPT to create ads for you, create ads, and then you have these robots painting houses. And I don't know, I'm just thinking high level here. I don't know all the moving mechanics. That's just my CEO, creative entrepreneur mind, just thinking out loud here of how we can leverage that stuff. You know what I'm looking forward to, Mike, and I think I mentioned this to you in our conversation before, where I can buy a robot, and I don't know if this technology will ever happen, and instead of having employees at my apartment buildings have a robot to do the maintenance or the general cleaning or the mowing of the lawn or the snow plowing and things like that. And I'm actually looking forward to that technology coming into play to deploy it in my apartment buildings.
I think that's totally coming. I mean, you look at Tesla's bot or Boston Dynamic and their robots. I think it's a really hard problem to solve, sort of like self-driving, where it's always a few years before it's supposed to be fully rolled out. But I think that in the next 50, 100 years, I think that may be a reality for all of us.
I want to switch the conversation a little bit into business, real estate, and things like that. I know we kind of pre-talked about this a little bit. Interest rates going up, economy is in a weird space right now. What impact do you guys think that AI could have on the overall economy, if any? Right? Could it have a negative impact, or will it have a positive impact on the economy? What impact will it have in your opinion, gentlemen?
I think it's going to have an overall very positive impact, because you add in AI technology that makes people more productive. You actually generate a much larger GDP as well as part of that. So there's a lot more wealth to go around. I think the interesting challenge is going to be in that distribution of wealth, right? If it turns out that the guys that made the painting robot own all of that infrastructure, own all of that, then we're all paying them for access to their robots, and they get all the wealth and the rest of us don't. So there's some interesting dynamics there. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think overall it's a good thing.
What do you think,
I completely agree 100%. I think the reality is generative AI right now is still in its infancy, right? I think organizations are looking at right now and saying, we know there's productivity gains. We know, there's studies that demonstrate, 25, 35, 40% productivity gains in certain areas. The reality, though, is how do we materialize that productivity and how do we monetize that productivity? I think there's going to be a lot of questions around, I think we talked about this as well, kind of a scarcity mindset versus kind of abundance mindset. Do you say, I need less people to do the same amount of work? Or do I need, the same amount of people, but they're doing different types of work, right? They're doing more creative work, more, higher level thinking work. And so I think right now it's too early to determine which organizations are going to go which way. But there's a lot of confusion, and I think that's creating a lot of uncertainty right now in investments from companies and ultimately affecting the economy, of course.
What are the challenges as it pertains to regulations with artificial intelligence? As you know, I think President Biden started a committee or something to start. I saw an article in my weekly business brief maybe a month ago, some regulation or some board he's forming to start regulating AI. I want to get your perspective. I know both of you are very optimistic on AI and artificial intelligence and technology, but what are some of the, what is the importance of having regulations? Do you guys believe we should have some regulations? What type of regulations? What are some of the dangers that fall along with not having or having too much of it? I'm going to go with you first, Mike.
Yeah, I tend to be someone that prefers a world of less regulation to give people the freedom to experiment and discover what works best. But I also am sympathetic with someone like Elon Musk that says once the genie is out of the bottle, like, does this go down a path that we don't want to go down? Like, there is regulation on super powerful weapons like nuclear bombs. Can this be weaponized? And should there be some regulation around that? Probably. I don't know what those regulations should be. That's what people in Washington are there to help us figure out. But I in general, I tend to be more hands-off.
It just kind of concerns me, right? When I hear a guy like Elon Musk, he's our modern day Albert Einstein is what we call him, right? And he sees things that most of us can't see, right? Obviously, he can think in ways that most of us can't think. At least for myself, I'll speak. And when he says something like that, he never really elaborates. I've never seen him elaborate on what he really means by that. I don't know if any of you have seen him saying what he means by that. This thing is dangerous. It could be very dangerous. But what is it that he sees or that he envisions that we are not, right? In his brilliant genius mind. Frank, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I think, again, I can't speak for him. I'm certainly not an Elon Musk, right? But what I can envision is, again, the capabilities of artificial intelligence, the ability to compute billions of parameters, at any given moment. It's going to eventually get to a point where it exceeds the human brain, right? And the capability. And I think what comes of that is things where we may not even anticipate in terms of challenges and things like that. You throw something like a quantum computing, and then you start to recognize you could use artificial intelligence with that type of compute power and really quickly overwhelm, government encryption pretty quickly. What does that mean? Well, that means accessibility to nuclear arms and things like that, right? So, and that's the kind of stuff I think that's really scary, right? And to your point, we need people to understand. I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, right, the challenges that generative AI and AI encounter are things around intellectual property as well, right? So creating image, for example, who owns that? Is it the person who prompted it? Is it the company who created the model and allowed you to generate it? Is it the person who built the original content that the model was trained on? I think there's all these elements of who owns that intellectual property at the end of the day, and can you hold claim to it at any given person or place? I think those types of things. There's also, challenges with AI in terms of bias. Again, these models have been trained on the vast amounts of internet information, and we all recognize that the internet is not always correct. It's not always accurate. It's not always the proper information, and so that leads to misinformation. And then, we talk about the things like deep fakes, and we're about to enter here in the United States, we're about to enter an election cycle, right? And so the effects that these artificial intelligent deep fakes can have on providing misinformation, and who's going to be responsible for that, right? If they have a video of Joe Biden or one of the GOP contenders saying something that's not true, right? But it looks accurate. It looks like them. And we all recognize that the controls are not being put in place right now in front of Facebook or Instagram to take those off immediately. So they could have other dire effects outside of just intellectual property or AI actually doing the negative, if you will.
Yeah, I think we need to have some type of guardrail because of a lot of the things that you both mentioned. Because if you guys remember 2008, right, what happened? It was deregulation that caused that great financial crisis. And while capitalists like us are the ones that solve the world's biggest issues, is not governments, in my opinion. Governments never solve anything other than create more debt and get us in trouble because they're not capitalists or entrepreneurs like us. Is a capitalist that finds solutions to the world's biggest problems. I mean, ChatGPT, that it was amazing, that like brilliant, right? So it's us that find the solutions. However, there are good and there are bad people, and that can take this technology and use it against us. And I go back to the financial crisis. I was a broker in the space, so I was the one writing the loans in the streets back then in 05 and 06. But it was really Wall Street that was giving this money with this deregulation of loans. They were packaging all of these bad loans and they created that big mess. And that deregulation took this country, took the world through a financial mess. It was, if you guys both remember, it was havoc, man. It was havoc. And what they did was they blamed the brokers. A lot of it was, well, these scrupulous brokers said, well, we couldn't sell a loan that Wall Street and the banks were giving. We didn't have the money. We were just writing the loans that we were given access to write. You had these Wall Street guys that knew what they were doing. They all knew that these were bad loans. I look, a lot of these guys on Wall Street are a lot smarter than me. And I remember a day taking my whole team into the conference room and saying to my team, and those of none of them are with me today, but if any of you are listening, you all remember I took you to my conference room and I said, guys, this makes no sense. This wasn't around 2007. I said, I don't know why, but this is going to blow up. It just logically makes no sense. We're giving people $300,000 loan that are making $35,000, $40,000. Guys, this just doesn't make any sense. So how can a little guy like me, right, figure that out, and Wall Street couldn't figure that out? Yeah. Right? It was just making money hand over fist, and it was deregulation, and it created a big mess. And that's, I tend to be like you, Mike. Less regulation is better for business, right? We're building buildings and we're doing construction. We don't need these inspectors getting in the way. All they do is get in the way, right? All these bureaucrats do is get in the way of stifling innovation and get in the way. However, if we don't have some type of guardrail, it creates mayhem for those people that are not like us, that have good intentions and want to use these tools in a good, positive way. So I like to ask you both, if there were some guardrails, what kind of guardrails would you guys recommend if you were advising the President of the United States and Congress, as you both are entrenched in this type of stuff? What would you tell them to do? What type of guardrails would you recommend?
Yeah, I'll start. I think from an intellectual property perspective, have clearer line of sight in terms of these models, again, are more accessible than ever before, right? So the ability for you and I to go get open source and create a large language model is realistic nowadays. But giving some idea in terms of what is what's allowed from a trainable data perspective, right? And who owns that information? I think it'd be beneficial to all of us if we understood how data was gathered to train these models, and how do we begin to recognize the value of that training data and compensate people accordingly. So the argument I would have is, what's going to incent somebody, an artist, for example, to learn that skill, hone that skill, and perfect that skill if at any one time, any AI model can grab all their content, train against it, and then provide it to anyone free and relatively cheap, right? So we need to recognize that the creator generation or the creator community needs to be compensated for the skills and the time and effort that they take in creating that skill. And again, if AI wants to train against that, if people want to train models against that, then maybe there's a licensing or royalty or some type of approach that you can compensate those folks. So that intellectual property, how people are incented through the entire value chain, would be a great way for regulation to help along that path.
This is a great suggestion, great idea. Mike, your thoughts?
I don't know if I have the magic answer, but I think figuring out how to prevent the weaponization of AI, because as you mentioned, as it gets smarter, because it's going to get smarter than all of us, it can do things maybe like decrypting or breaking encryption schemes and getting into spaces it's not supposed to, even to the point that maybe we lack the control of it. Like, we need to make sure that we always have the off switch to this AI device that we're creating. But also second on what was just said, because if you look at space like music, I have a feeling that over the next few years or decade, AI is going to get to the point that it's creating music as good, if not better, than many of the artists that we have today. So how does that change that landscape? And in particular, if AI is using the information from our current artists to generate future albums, we need to figure out a way to compensate them.
These are really good point. I never even thought about it that way. And wasn't there a song that imitated Drake or something recently? And it was like, everyone thought it was him and it was created by AI. Really crazy stuff. Final question for the both of you. What's on the horizon for AI in 2024 and beyond, and any futuristic breakthroughs you're keeping an eye on, and how might that change our day-to-day lives? I'm going to go with you first, Frank.
Yeah, I think I mentioned in terms of the technology themselves, multimodal. I think
is that the name of the actual technology?
The name of the technology, yes. So OpenAI is going to have, ChatGPT is going to have their own multimodal. Gemini is Google's multimodal. But what I mean by multimodal, again, is be able to put different types of input and get different types of output out, right? Whether that be an image or text or audio inputs to get image, text, or audio outputs, right? The ability to kind of do that is going to really...
is that out already? Is that out already, Frank? Is that out already to the public? And can we look that up and use that?
Right. So in ChatGPT, it's stitched together is the best way to put it together. Whereas Gemini, Google's has been built from the ground up that way, right? So we can get into the technology piece of it, but just recognize multimodal is going to change the way app development is done, the way we interact with certain things. We're going to be able to really leverage a bunch of different ways of inputting information into AI. Right now, primarily the way we use AI right now is, texting or, some kind of, but the way we interact going forward is going to change dramatically. And so really excited about that. I think people are going to start to recognize the effects of that and think of really creative use cases. I think going beyond that, I think people are going to shift their attention from generative AI just being a productivity or an efficiency tool to really being about innovation, right? And changing business models, really honing in terms of new ways of revenue generation and things like that, using these technologies to create new and innovative products and services and things like that we had not once anticipated. So it's going to move beyond just saying, I think we need less people and it's going to be about productivity gain to we actually need more people because we're creating new businesses. We're creating new revenue streams. We're creating new technologies using these technologies. So it's going to be less about productivity and more about innovation going forward.
Mike,
from my perspective, I think there's something really interesting coming down the pike that is, maybe it looks mundane on the surface. And that is that these AI models can take very unstructured data. Imagine all your spreadsheets and your Word documents and your emails and everything, all this data information that your organization has generated. And then it can make sense of that in a meaningful way. But I think what's even more powerful beyond that, first, they understand the whole business. But I can imagine a world where the AI then starts letting people know what they should be doing next, right? You don't have to have as detailed communication with all your coworkers because you get updates on what you should be moving next, where you should go next. And you need a little less of that structure because the AI infrastructure is helping guide everyone along. So that's kind of one fun thing. On a real estate side, we're looking a lot into architecture, engineering, and that whole infrastructure, and being able to develop all of those plans using AI and computer science to actually build that out, and then generate our schedules, generate all the material lists, coordinate everything well in advance, but not just figure it out once, actually work through optimizations to find ways to develop our properties, again, at a substantially lower cost. And so there's some fun technologies there.
I wanted that was my next question for you, was around real estate. And I know I said that was my last question, but I got one more question for you, Mike, around that. What impact, and I know, part of your mission in your company is to lower the cost of development through using artificial intelligence and technology. But you're coming from an entrepreneur, business owner standpoint of view. I want to ask you, what impact do you think AI will have or could have on the average person, right? Us three here, right? The entrepreneurs, the creators, the one that create jobs, the one that go out and make things happen. What impact will AI have on the average working class? So maybe affordability of homes. Affordability is through the roof. The average American has to make $114,000 a year per household to qualify for the average medium household, for the medium average price in America right now, which, I don't know, it's like $70,000 a year, the medium household income. So it's affordability is out through the roof, right? Affordability is just out the window with interest rates. What impact do you think, Mike, AI in and of itself and guys like us using it could have to help with some of those stresses that people have in the housing sector, like affordability? Will there be an impact in the cost of housings? I think I'm of this camp, and realtors, I'm sorry if you're going to hear me. I think AI is going to replace real estate agents eventually. Not now, but I think personally, eventually they will. Just technology is just way too advanced, and it eventually will. What do you see, Mike, as it pertains to that?
I think in the world of real estate, AI is a tool. It's not the end all be all, at least not yet. And so when we think about driving down the cost of construction, there's a variety of things that we do to make that happen. And frankly, right now, those other techniques are having a bigger impact than AI. But as AI evolves, I think it will, again, have a bigger hand in improving that. But for us, by solving those construction costs, by driving them down, we can then make our individual lives better because we're now putting less of our income into housing. Another way to think about it, though, is as AI improves, and let's say that GDP now doubles as a result of the productivity improvements provided by AI, assuming decent income distribution, our incomes would double, and therefore our lives would get better and easier as a result.
Do you agree with that, Frank?
I'll add one other thing, right? So, as I mentioned, thinking about these technologies beyond just productivity gains, right, from an innovation perspective, there's an initiative called GNOME, GNOME, which is graphic networks on material engineering. So GNOEM. And what's amazing about this is, and it's just recently came out, they're using AI and graphic networks to really identify new elements, new materials, new things that are going to make that we had not come up with before, because we're leveraging these AIs to identify compounds, chemistry, all these different things to create something that we had not yet previously done. What does that mean? That means cheaper materials. That means materials that are able to, for example, solar panels that are much more efficient in gathering the solar energy, batteries that are able to withstand and hold charges longer. That type of stuff is where we're going to start to see, again, AI move from just a productivity improvement to really innovation and creating things that we had not yet even fathomed, but it's going to give us the ability to take advantage of in the future.
Man, that is really exciting to hear. Like, really, really exciting. Thank you both for coming on the show, gentlemen. Really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your insights and your thoughts and what you think it's the future of AI in 2024. If anyone wanted to get a hold of you, Mike, I know you're raising capital. Frank, I know that you're going to be speaking, and I'm sure people are going to want to learn. I know I do. Would you both please respectively share how and people can connect with you guys, find out more, learn from you? So I'm going to go with you first, Mike, and then with you, Frank.
Yeah, to learn more, you can visit our website, norhart.com. That's NORHART.com. And there we have a couple of great things. One is our new investment opportunity. We are offering people a 10% rate of return for locking in your money with our projects. And so that's one option. The other thing we've got going on is our shows. And we've got one podcast called Zero to Unicorn, where we interview people that are making $1 billion impact. And to give you a sense of this, one of our guests was the executive producer and the originator of Batman. Mm-hmm. And he took him 10 years from the point he got the movie rights to the point he actually got the green light to move forward. So it shows the tenacity and energy that you need in order to achieve incredible success.
Amazing. Love that. What about for you, Frank? How can people get a hold of you, brother?
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly you can reach out to me at frank@catalytics.ai. Again, Martin, if you could put that in the show notes.
Yep, we'll put it all in the show notes.
Find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm active on LinkedIn, sharing best practices and strategies to take advantage of these, like I said, emerging technologies, showing organizations, large, small, and medium, all about the benefits that these technologies can have on their organization. And then I mentioned I'll be participating in some training sessions with the American Marketing Association. Martin, I'll send you links associated with that as well.
Do you have the website for that? You can share it right now if you like.
I don't have it off top, but if you go to American Marketing Association, AMA.org, and look up generative AI best practices and strategies, you can find the registration link there.
Yeah, and we'll make sure we put that in the show notes. We'll get that out to you guys, the listeners, so you can follow it and follow through on that. Guys, thank you very much. Really, really appreciate you guys for both coming on and being so gracious with your knowledge and your wisdom, your experience, and your thoughts. Really, really appreciate that. I got a ton of value from spending time with the both of you, and I'm certain that my audience also got a ton of value and learned a whole bunch from the both of you. Guys, listeners, those of you listening, make sure you go and you check both of these gentlemen out. And go check out their podcast, go check out their episodes. I can't remember the episode numbers, but they're both Mike Kaeding and Frank Mendoza, both of them. I had episodes with them. They're both amazing episodes. So please go check those out. Really appreciate you guys listening. Thank you guys for both being here. Really appreciate you guys.